And now for my next number.
I don't think y'all ready for this.
I'd like to return to the classics.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, non-binary familia. Welcome to the JTX podcast. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and non-binary familia, welcome to season 3 of the JTX podcast. I am the one, the only Jason Tamer, unless there are other Jason Tamers out there, which, I guess. Apparently, I did a Google search. There is other Jason Tamers out there, even though I thought I was the only one who actually did something like this. But, I digress. Welcome back. It's amazing to be here. It's amazing to even make new episodes. I am beyond excited to show every single one of y'all what's gonna come pretty much. I've noticed a trend. Well, first and foremost, I want to apologize. I have not in any way been communicated with anyone about how the format really much is going. And I wasn't really expecting this at all, but from what I've noticed is that every season is about 6 episodes. So please expect pretty much the exact same thing for season 3. Anyways, unless I get a consistent stream of people coming in, recording and stuff like that, pretty much season 3 is going to be the season to stay on for the end of time and eternity and all that. Well, let's do some housekeeping real quick. So, I have a website. Feel free to go to www.jasontamer.com and you'll be able to see pretty much all of the JTX shenanigans that be happening. That includes my website. Well, that is my website. That includes my podcast. That includes everything that I record. That also includes the photography that I do. Just multiple different things. So, feel free to check it out. Another thing is are potentially coming out, I'm potentially coming out with a book coming out sometime in the end of summer called Catalyst, and it's just a whole thing about my photography that I've done from 2017 up until 2021, which is by the time I'm recording this, 2021. Check it out. Hopefully I can get it done by August. I should be done. I just need to do a few more adjustments and everything should be fine. But look forward to that. And the day that I am uploading this, June 4th, it's my birthday. So what a better way for me to spend my birthday, celebrate my birthday, than to upload a new episode of the JTX podcast and have every single one of y'all check it out. But without further ado, this episode of the podcast is one that is extremely important to me because I am recording with my sister. Now, a quick summary. 2 days before we recorded, 2 days after we recorded, my sister got married. And for me, obviously, it took my heartstrings because of the journey that we've been on together our whole lives, everything we've gone through because of our parents, family, friends, just a bunch of stuff, and I was happy for her. We'll talk about it in the podcast, but regardless, I'm happy for her, and I'm excited to see what's her next chapter in her journey is, and I wish her but nothing but the best. See, now I'm gonna start crying because of this bullshit. Anyways, without further ado, this is the one, the only, my sweet baby sister, Jocelyn. How you doing?
Good, huh?
Yeah, I bet. You're getting married in 2 days?
T minus
2 days.
48 hours. A little bit.
How's the anticipation?
Well, it's good. I'm the type of person that I Like, it doesn't hit me till the day of. And you know this by us.
Yeah, it's like when we go. Yeah. It's like we're on an airplane, and
Yeah,
like that's
like,
when you
oh,
feel. Oh, yeah.
We're doing it. Yeah.
So
It's definitely that right now. I've just been running around finishing up the last details, all that good stuff.
I've always been curious with, because you've said it yourself, where it's like you've prayed to be married. And I'll never forget that one time you were like, God forbid I turn 30 and I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Being single.
Being single, like, I might be tempted to just go out. Like, what about marriage has always been for you, like,
Appealing?
I wouldn't say appealing, but like the thing you desire the most? Because you've also said that you were in church and you're prophesied that, like the thing you mostly desire will come, or something like that, right?
Yeah, you've been praying for the month.
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like I respect that, but like, what about, is it marriage that appeals to you the most, or is it like having a significant other, or like what exactly is it?
I mean, that's a good question. First of all, shout out to Wingstop.
They're not sponsoring us in any way, just to let you know. One day, give me a few more years.
We got enough listeners, right?
Bro.
So I don't know. Growing up, it definitely.
Don't be afraid of speaking to the mic.
Oh, okay. Growing up, it definitely wasn't something that I focused my attention to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was always, and then also like going to church and stuff. It was like those rules of like, oh, you're not allowed to be in a relationship or have a significant other whatever until you're 18. Like all these requirements,
Yeah.
in order to like get permission through from the church to like be in a relationship. So growing up in that environment, never really came to mind anyway. That, and then also, I was like 7 inches shorter and like a lot chunkier, and so no one really paid attention to me anyway. So I guess I was. Like,
that's not true in any way, though. That's the worst.
I mean, up until like 15. So even like nowadays, kids have boyfriend girlfriends when they're like 11, 12, right? So.
I mean, I'm gonna cut real quick. Like, I was talking with Sammy about it too, and it's like, and all the dudes, and it's like, yeah, like, a lot of guys in the church really liked you. So it's like, to feel proud about that for sure.
I mean, I wasn't attracted to him.
I can't blame you. I can't blame you.
So yeah, it was just that. I feel like once I grew up, or not grew up, I think it was after, maybe in college. Yeah, when I got to college. Because our school was so small and like the options that were out there in the school weren't good options to like date anyone. Yeah. So obviously in college is such a much bigger demographic of people.
I mean, what, only like 7 of us graduated basically?
So yeah, I guess from then on, like, you get you're attracted to more people, and then there's actual potential, like, oh, not only am I attracted to that person, they're attracted to me, so it could possibly be something. But yeah, I guess that's where the beginning of like my interest of being in a relationship started.
So you would say like post high school then, so when you're 18.
For sure. Yeah, because then obviously I turned 18 no, because we left church, I think, when we were, like, I was, like, 17 or something. Probably before 18, no?
18, 19.
Okay. Yeah, so around that time. So I guess, like, in a sense, that was the age where you were allowed to start dating people. So, yeah, that's definitely where my interest started for a relationship. And then fast forward, obviously, until when I actually got in a relationship, which was, I was turning 21, I think.
Was it?
Oh, no, I was 21. I was 21 already.
Turning 22, right?
Yeah, 21 and a half.
Because I was 24, 2017. So 22, yeah, 21 and a half. No, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
And a half. Yeah, so, and then being in the relationship for the first time and seeing how, how great it can be and all that stuff. you actually start to get like the taste of it and like companionship and
It's a hell of a drug.
yeah, building towards something and like the future and stuff. And even though I had never been in a relationship before, like I knew that I didn't want to be one to jump from relationship to relationship. I wanted like a serious ideal, like one and done kind of thing. In regards to like being in one relationship and then that being the one that I get married in.
Essentially, like the one, right?
Yeah. And things play out differently, and obviously now where I'm at, where I'm about to get married to the person, someone different than the person that was in my first relationship. I mean, I'm grateful that it wasn't that person. And so yeah, I mean, it's just. Sorry, I kind of like went on this whole ramble, but to answer your question, the whole, I guess, desire of being in a marriage, it's just loving someone. That's funny. I was watching this TV show on Netflix. It was called Reign. So it's based off of Queen Mary of Scots, all that stuff, and so it just goes on about like, her whole life and all that stuff. But there's this one part. Where this guy, he says something, and I felt like there was just so much truth to it, where it's like, what's beautiful in life is not to be loved, but to be able to love someone so passionately.
I agree with that.
And so, when I heard that, like, I was like, yeah, that's so true. Like, we all think of, like, oh, I want to be loved by someone, and yeah, that's great. But I know there's just something, and I feel like it just ties into, like, at least to my belief with the Bible, like, of receiving, not receiving, but giving, like that's where the biggest blessing is, when you give to those around you and all that stuff, and it just feels good, and so to give love and all that, and to love so deeply and passionately, it's definitely a great feeling. And at the end of the day, at least to my belief, that what's most important or in this life is love, right? Like Paul in the Bible goes on to say, like, what good is it to have everything but you're bankrupt in love? Like to me, I've always like stuck by that or held on to that scripture, and like it's just so true. Like I've experienced just not even being like a crazy traveler of the world, but like traveling and being pretty well off financially and stuff, or decent enough.
Yeah.
But having all that security, but not, having someone to love and be loved by, like it felt like there was something missing.
I mean, that's always what it is, right? Like, you can have every single riches in the world, but in the end of the day,
What good is it?
Yeah, and sure, like, as a guy, for me, like, let's say if I'm extremely financially successful, like, I can pay for intimacy if I choose to, but it's not real intimacy. It's not the same. So, but I guess, like, what I was wondering is, has your definition of love changed throughout the years that you've been on this journey?
Yes, absolutely. Just because the way society brings you up nowadays is the misconception of love is a feeling. And so, you can't blame people, that you date or around you for feeling or thinking the same way, because that's pretty much what's advertised. Love is a feeling. That's why there's so much divorce, because it's like, oh, well, we don't love each other anymore.
Well, I mean, I would say majority of divorces cost in the United States is by financial means. So
it could be as well.
No, I mean that is what, like, the main, like the exact. So, like, I agree that for me, I could love you as a sister, as but it's like to truly be in love. Like, what is that?
I mean, yeah, there's different types of love for sure, because like you said, like loving your mom, your siblings, but then I don't know, I guess the difference between that and with like a partner is the intimacy part, right? Because you could love, everything else could be the same as far as like loving them unconditionally, which is no matter what happens, right? Like you choose to love that person. But yeah, I definitely feel like my definition has changed of love, because I mean, for me, I feel like, it clicked when, after my first heartbreak and stuff. And I was very immature, like,
I mean, we all are,
emotionally, mentally,
for sure. Yeah.
At that age. My definition and the way I viewed things was like childish.
Would you say fairy tale like?
Yes, there was much fairy tale, but then also very childish. And then I say childish in regards to like the way a lot of people nowadays view relationships and stuff, because it is childish the way a lot of people view relationships nowadays. But yeah, it definitely clicked after my first breakup. I just clung to the Bible and God, and I was in a really dark space, and so I don't know, I learned that love by watching many sermons on relationships and love and all that stuff. I got this new understanding of what it is to love someone the way God loves us. And so a lot of the verses and just teachings and stuff, we're just talking about how love is in action, but society considers it to be a chemical reaction, right? Like a feeling, an emotion.
A mixture for sure.
Yeah, a mixture. But, understanding that you choose to love someone. People say, oh, I fell out of love. I disagree, because it's not an emotion, in my opinion. It's not a feeling. It's something that you do, right? And so, yeah, it definitely changed, after that, after my first breakup, and then during that time of being single and stuff, and now being in a relationship, putting that into practice, and not even waiting until I got into a relationship, but trying the best I could do with those around me, like you, my mom, friends, all that stuff, so yeah, that definitely changed. What was your other question?
Well, I mean, that was pretty much the question, where it's like, if your views have changed. One of the things that, I mean, especially a lot of people don't believe in now and age or this society, it's like, for one, you've never dated. Like, even teenagers, when we were teenagers, well, we never dated in general. For me, because I didn't know how to date. But for you, it was a choice, And even after you turned 18, like, you didn't have your first kiss until your first boyfriend. So for you, you are a rarity. You are a unique person. Not a lot of people can say the things, and that's not to like downput other people who have, or like, in the end of the day, do your thing, of course. But for you, it was a choice to do all of that. What kept you going instead of just choosing a random person and either hooking up with them or being with them or whatever,
No, I mean, it was definitely, I feel like, I don't know, for me personally, like, I've always been confident in the God that I worship. So knowing that, his promise of, like, the person that he has for me is, gonna be the person I've been praying for, all that stuff. Now, growing up, it definitely was a mixture of that fairy tale view, because it's like, oh, it's kind of like a genie, right, or whatever, like, oh, if you pray for this, or if you ask for this, like, this is what you're gonna get.
If you pray to lose weight, it'll happen.
You're gonna get it. Yeah. And so it was definitely that view growing up. As I got older, it definitely shifted along with the whole love, right? My understanding of love and stuff, just because once I got my first relationship, it was a lot of heartbreak with the kind of like burying all that fairy tale.
Once you got out of your relationship?
During the relationship, yeah, and after as well.
So you started noticing that, oh, it's not what...
Yeah, like my first kiss wasn't as, Disney portrayed it, So it wasn't like this big magical moment. It was just something really basic and simple. And so, just even like those, I had to like come to terms, but it was like devastating. I was devastated every single time because I'm like, but this is how I.
There's supposed to be fireworks
Or
everywhere.
like just anything, right? Like just like all my first in regards to like obviously not sex, but just all the other things that came with like the relationship. And so, yeah, I was definitely coming to terms with a lot of things, which I felt were like heartbreaks every time because I was like, but I grew up my whole life thinking that this is what it was, and my expectations were let down.
Which, side note, my first kiss definitely was a fairy tale, which for me, I was like, awesome.
Yeah. Which, it just, everyone's different. But yeah, and so. Sorry, what was your question again?
So pretty much like what kept you going into because and I know it's a sense taboo to really say this, but I mean you are a virgin.
Yeah.
Like you like first kiss, even though like a kiss is a kiss, but you waited it out for that.
It wasn't,
you didn't do it in high school to a random person. It was your first relationship, and you're gonna go into your wedding night with plans that you're gonna have kids, so it's like what kept you going, knowing that there were these other, and I'm gonna say women for this one because it's like you're a woman yourself, so it's like meanwhile other women are out there hooking up, which once again it's okay, let them do their thing, but you not giving in to the quote unquote temptation of it.
Yeah.
Like what kept you going? Was it it was the God that he was giving you the promises that you wanted in the end of the day?
There you go. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for refreshing my memory. Yeah, so yeah, definitely growing up with that misconception, I guess, of the fairy tale, and then even after though, just knowing, so despite the like things of me thinking or expecting them to be a certain way and having be let down by that, just knowing that, for me personally, in my beliefs, that marriage and like your virginity is so sacred, just because it is a priceless thing that you obtain, or like you have, and it's something you choose to give or not. Unfortunately, nowadays, some people, they don't have that choice, right? Like, it gets taken away from them. But as I've gotten older, and I would like to think I've matured, even though, let's say, for those that have kind of sidetracked, but those that have had it taken away from them forcefully, I feel like they still have, in a sense, they have that virginity or purity, because it's not like they chose to just give it to someone. So I feel like it's just based off of like the person that let's say whatever, the example with them, and then they end up getting married, or like after that period of time they just didn't have sex, and they've waited to have sex with the person that they're gonna marry. I would still consider it being like they have purity, and in a sense they are quote unquote a virgin, because they understood the root of like giving themselves to that one person forever. Does that make sense?
So would you say it's more of like, and it kind of burns me to say this, but like a social construct of like a virginity, once you have it, you lose it. Instead, it's you having the power to choose of when it is.
Not necessarily. I feel like certain cases are like different. Like, again, with that regard of like if it's like if you're raped or whatever, right? You weren't given, like, you didn't choose to like lose your virginity to someone. It was taken away from you, unfortunately. And so I don't know, I feel like a lot of the time we just go into, or like as adults, when you're aware of what you're doing, and your choices and all those things, and you choose to have sex with someone, like, yeah, of course I feel like you don't truly value the meaning of when the two become one. It's more of an emotional mental, spiritual thing as opposed to just a physical.
I mean, I would definitely debate that because, and when I say debate, it's more of like pushback, because in the end of the day, like, yeah, there are some people who just don't care, which is the part where you said don't value. But I think there are people where, in the moment, it's like you're the one that I want to spend my rest of my life with, and we have that intimate moment, and things happen where it just doesn't work out.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that they didn't value, because they definitely value like that moment. It's just more of like things happened outside of their control probably, or maybe it was in the control of one party over the other and it just didn't work out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean I think that's fair, but I don't know. I just see it as like you can give so many things in a relationship. Giving yourself to someone sexually is a lot more deeper, more valuable. Yeah, you can. Yeah, I mean, people can do it all the time, like, or that's what they do all the time. But it's also understanding that it's not just a physical action, because like in the sense, the Bible, sex is to reproduce, right? Make love, obviously reproduce, have children. People are trying to, or they have been loopholing this whole time by using contraception to not have children, or you know what I mean, like they've defeated the purpose, which is to reproduce and stuff, amongst obviously like loving one another and like showing love and affection. But nowadays, it's not even to just create, a human being out of the love of two people. Because, a lot, I mean, a lot of people are in their relationships that have a sex, but they don't want, like, with the intention of not wanting to have kids.
Which, I mean, that's okay, though.
That's okay if you're in a marriage. If you're like, oh, well, we're in a season where we don't want to have children yet. But, yes, we do want to have children with one another. You know what I mean?
I mean, I know what you mean, and I know where you're coming from with it. But once again, I mean, I do disagree with that, because it is that thing where sex, for one, it's a pleasure, right? It's like your receptors in your brain start acting up because of it. But that's the choice that as a person they have. If I were to step into your circle, quote unquote, which is like your Christian circle, it's like, well, God gave us the free will to do that. And I understand where the Bible comes from with, oh, this is meant to have children and all these other things. But it's like, in the end of the day, if the free will is there, like, let them. Now, sure, we could go into the whole road of, going against God, but that's a whole different conversation. That's not what we're talking about. I think, but if I were to step out of that circle and go in the sense to where you're going, it's like when you have sex with somebody, you're sharing your vibes, you're sharing your atoms, your molecules, your energy, everything. Yeah. And that's why it's like, choose who you want to share that with. Because in the outside circle, or outside, it's like one night stands, it gets to the point where it's meaningless, because you're not sharing that actual intimacy, the actual like careness of what you're doing. But I can't agree with you saying that, well, if you're married and you choose to not want to have kids, it's like, no, like every human being has that choice of wanting to have kids outside of marriage, which is a thing, but it's like, I would say it's like, choose who you want to give that energy to, is what I would go with.
Yeah. I mean, obviously now we're speaking in a different, I guess, scenario. So let's say, going with what you're saying, okay, yeah, choose who you want to vibe with or whatever, but choose wisely, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was saying too.
I'm choosing to share this with this person. You move differently. You choose more wisely, no matter what that looks like, whether it may be of like, like being in 5 different relationships and not having sex with them, because knowing that, like, okay, I'm not really like I'm vibing, but I'm not there yet where I want to, choose to share that with them, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people nowadays, they don't choose. They're reckless. They're careless with it, and That's unfortunate.
It is.
Because like you said,
It is.
they, you share everything. Like sex is a very deep.
It can, if you want spiritual, it's very spiritual. It's very intimate. It's everything. It's a very.
How much more vulnerable and transparent can you get? Aside from that, and so that's what I'm saying. Like it's not the way society portrays it now, where it's like, oh, it's just I want to get off, and so I'm gonna have a one night stand, and that's it.
But also that does come from like, past situations where some people are quote unquote hypersexual, or it's like instead of doing actual drugs, they need some form of stimulant in their brain, which would be from that. It varies case by case, right? But for you, I definitely will say I do applaud you, because it is something not a lot of people can say. Like, I wouldn't even say a lot of people. I would say, like, a lot of people in the Christian community also, and it is something where I would say it's to be proud of. I do think you should be proud of how far you've come with potentially multiple temptations of being like, you know what, I don't care, I'm just gonna like be with somebody and I don't care who they are. But it's like, no, you stood your ground knowing that someone who is in the same mindset as you, somebody who has the same ideals, values, wants to share the same future as you, like, you are able to, I wouldn't say wait, but work towards to that point, because you had to put work in yourself. No, the times where you would read books, you would talk to your friends, you would watch videos because you wanted to be a better woman. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like, I wouldn't even say Christian community. I would just say, like, humanity in itself.
I mean, the reason why I say Christian community is more because
there's an expectation of, like,
yeah,
you have to, like, the Bible says, and so you have to wait till marriage. But again, it just goes back to, like, we're still humans, and, like, we still have the same temptations as everyone else in this world, and, we, wherever we fall, and we give in and stuff, and just because we have the title, quote unquote, of Christians doesn't make it any less, we're not less susceptible to those things around.
Well, I'm not saying that you're less susceptible or they are less susceptible. What I'm trying to get at mostly is that there are a lot of people that don't speak what they preach, is what I'm getting at. So, because like, in the end of the day, people, I do firmly believe, like, if people want to go have sex, like, let them go. Like, if you're of a specific, but I guess what I'm trying to get at mostly is that do that, but don't come at other people being like, hey, look, like, don't do this, or hey, yeah. And that's where I'm getting at, because there is a lot of that, and it's hypocrisy, obviously. But that's where the frustrations come with me, where it's like, how many times back when we were at our old church where people would tell us shit and they ended up doing it themselves. That's where I'm getting at.
Yeah. No, and I completely understand. I mean, I personally am I'm the type of person that I don't respect someone that doesn't do what they say. I don't find you credible. Like, I don't know, at least the way I view things now is, like, I don't need to preach Jesus, the Bible, God. I just need to act on it. That'll speak much more louder than constantly, throwing out Bible scriptures, and name dropping, oh, God, God this, God that, whatever.
Well, then again, you've never been one to even do something like that, though.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying, like, excuse me. Yeah, and that's what I always strive for. I rather just speak with my actions than, like I try to hear everyone out, kind of like what you're saying, like people want to go have sex, like let them, yeah, you know what I mean, like like you said, free will, that's their choice. But I'm also not gonna like pat you on the back on it or be like, oh yeah, like it'll be fine. Like, no, go ahead, do it, but realize that there are repercussions with it. Like, it's much more serious than what you think it is. So let's say, for example, if I was talking to a 16-year-old teenager, whether
Yeah.
in the future my daughter or just someone right now, I'd be like, if you want to go have sex, that's your choice, but I'm telling you that it's a lot more complex than what you think it is, besides just physical. Like it's very emotional, it's very mental, spiritual. It's just all these things, and you want to make sure, even like with my daughter, the way I view it, like, yeah, I'm gonna like explain it to them and being like, look, you need to be, and of course it's not the most like, not, it's not that it's not comfortable, but I would want them to wait until marriage, because I don't want them to have to go through that extra hurt, when, because I would think, right, what I've heard is that there, like, especially when it's your first time, that there's a different type of hurt after a breakup, especially when you lost your virginity to that person, as opposed to like a regular hurt.
I mean, there's sufferment, right? Because you guys, well, women are very emotional. Guys are very like not emotional. So something as deep as like intimacy like that, when a guy breaks up with you, you gave yourself or your all to that person. So yeah, like there is heartbreak if you're not well prepared or well equipped for that heartbreak.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because, society likes to say that, oh, well, I don't know about nowadays, but at least growing up, it was that, like, your virginity is priceless. Like, that's something that you like can never get back and all these things, but yet they're so quick to give it away. And so I thought that was like really deep, because it just goes to show how backwards everything is.
You say they, who? What do you mean by who they?
Society, like just people that you would, like, friends you would talk to, or it was mainly friends, not shows, because shows don't talk about that. But and so I don't know, it's interesting. It just goes to show how backwards it is, right? But yeah, so just going back to that example.
But that goes back to the whole thing that I was saying earlier, where it's like practicing what you preach.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's where the biggest frustration does come.
Unfortunately, the voices that are heard are of those same people, right? Like, those are the people that peer pressure you to do do things that they're telling you of, like, hey, like, this is worth of value, but then they're like, oh yeah, go ahead, like, have sex with that guy or whatever. But yeah, just going back to like that whole example of what I was saying about the girl and stuff, I would like I would just say, like, really think about it. It's not something to play with. Now, I wouldn't try to scare them of, like, because with us, it was like, oh, you're going to get pregnant, and then you're going to get this STD or whatever, at church or whatever.
Well, I mean, not even at church, like, stuff like that, because we also, what they would tell us is, like, you're sinning, you're going to hell, so, like, the only place that taught us about STDs was when we worked at the credit union. I don't know if you were there that time. Yeah, see, like, even at school, I don't think... No, the principal...
Sister Joyce had us, like, read the chapter to ourselves.
No, not even that. It also, remember when Brother Sherwood gave us the book, Men Are From Mars, Women? I still have that copy, by the way. Like, you have it too, yeah. Yeah, so that was his way of, like, teaching us sex ed. And we weren't taught...
No. And so I wouldn't want to scare them out of it. It's just being, like, very self-aware of their choices. And knowing what, because in a sense, like, every choice has a repercussion. It's not necessarily a negative connotation. It just,
everything you do, like, someone could come out of it.
So, yeah, I view it more of that way, in regards of, like, oh, don't have sex. Obviously I'm going to be like, hey, like, you should wait till you're married, or, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, till you're married. But, if you do decide, because, again, that's a choice, for the most part, if you do decide, then make sure that you're okay with potentially losing that person, especially when you're like 16. You know what I mean? What are the chances of actually
Oh, for real.
marrying that person?
I don't think anybody in our friend group or that we knew who had a high school sweetheart is with them.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and again, like, it's just so many repercussions, because not only is it beautiful, but let's say in the off chance that you do get pregnant, you know, and you end up breaking up with that person, you're, in a sense, you're stuck with them involuntarily because of the child, you know, if they decide to stick around but be a deadbeat parent.
So,
Yeah, it's just-
I mean, just what you're trying to get at is just choose your partner well, right?
Yeah, well, because, you know, even with myself, in my situation, like, I adore and am madly in love with, you know, the man I'm gonna marry and stuff. But, you know, we've also, like I was telling you yesterday, we've had like our very difficult moments and arguments and stuff. And there's things that we've seen from each other in those arguments in regards to like the way we talk to each other, like the way our voices, you know, get raised, or just things that happen. And obviously, and that's considering that we're always striving to be better people. Like, we still unfortunately kind of revert back to like the things that we've been working to overcome, but it still happens, you know. And obviously, unfortunately, not everyone's like that. Not everyone has that mentality of being like, oh, I'm gonna work on like my faults or the things that aren't good, or, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, like, being stuck in a sense in a relationship where that person is the complete opposite, or, you know, just they're not the things that you thought they were, you know, it complicates your life, because it really does. Obviously, you can still get ahead and all those things, but it's definitely going to be a lot more complicated. So yeah, it's definitely just choosing your partner wisely. And yeah, I mean, you kind of like touched on it, but unfortunately, yeah, like, things get desensitized, you know, especially when you don't truly value the like depth and the meaning of something, you know, like, you take it for granted. Like, and it's huge, especially with sex, because sex is, I would, you know, I view it as like something so sacred, and that you don't play with it. Like, it's not something as easy. It shouldn't be as easy to come by as it has been made nowadays. You know, like, I feel like it is a reward, quote unquote, for those that wait to get married, because it's such a beautiful thing, you know. And within that space, you know, obviously you thrive in it, as opposed to having it be a downfall, you know. And so, yeah, I definitely recommend, or I guess, I don't know, like, kind of going back to what you asked me of, like, you know, why is it that I waited, or, you know, all those things, you know, just taking all those factors and kind of just holding on to them, like, obviously holding the promise that God had for me, and honestly, like, yeah, with the whole fairy tale thing. Sorry, I'm like all over the place, but
I mean, you're good. I could tell you're into it, so I'm chilling.
With the whole fairy tale thing, you know, like, I realized that it wasn't of like there's the one, right? You choose the person who you want to marry, who you want to be with, who you want to live the rest of your life, and it's a choice every single day, good or bad. Excuse me. And so, yeah, you know, holding on to God's promise of like, oh, I know you have someone out there for me and all that stuff. And again, like, people would come, but you choose, you know, who you wanna stay with, in a sense. Yeah, and so going from that, and then obviously with my whole first experience of a relationship, and, you know, I honestly thought, I kid you not, I honestly thought that we were gonna get married. Like, we had talked about it and like established it.
Wait, your first relationship? Yeah. Oh, dude, for sure. Especially I don't know, because me and him, we talked behind the scenes in the sense. Because there would be times where he would come over thinking that you would be here. And he'd be like, oh, I'm just here to drop this off for Jocelyn. And we would talk. And it's like a lot of the things that he would talk and say, it's like, yeah, dude, like, you're going to be with him.
It's going to happen. And so, I mean, you know, obviously I was childish. You know, I'll definitely admit that my ways of thinking were very childish. I was very immature, and obviously I had a lot of growing up to do, and you know, that situation helped me, or the breakup helped me grow into those things. And so I am thankful for that. But yeah, and so, you know, coming to that realization of like, oh crap, like it wasn't this person, and I could have sworn, like, honestly, every fiber of me, like, all the signs
were there. Everything seemed
'cause
perfect.
I would pray and be like, God, like, if this is the person for sure, like, give me a sign. And like, I kid you not, like, I could have sworn that what, like, the sign, it was, you know, it was confirming it, right?
The bird flew over you, and the color blue came out on TV.
The page in the Bible just blew to that, you know. And so, and so I could have sworn. But, you know, obviously things ended. And that was definitely like a blow.
Oh, dude.
And knocked me down. Like,
I mean, it hurt me seeing you like that.
I've never dealt with, you know, pain like that. And an emotional level, obviously. Heartbreak and all that stuff. And, you know, just for those people out there, like, when you're in a heartbreak, in a sense, you're grieving. It's like you lost someone.
You go through the stages of grief.
Absolutely, because it is grief. You lose
denial. And it's crazy because I'll never forget this. Also, one time where the water filter wasn't working, and y'all had broken up, but you were like, you remember this? You were like, oh, maybe I should call him and see if he could come over and fix it. And I'm like, exactly. And I was like, no, Jocelyn, like, I could fix this. It's not that hard. And you're like, no, like, he'll fix it. Like, I know we broke up, but he'll fix it. And it was like, you were in denial, just like the whole thing of y'all breaking up.
No, absolutely. And, you know, I'm just so thankful thinking about it now that, like, I overcame that and grew out of it. And, well, I would say I overcame that and grew from it, right? But yeah, so yeah, just after that, again, realizing that there is no one, you become the one for that person, you know? And so when two people are in that same mindset of like, oh, I need to become the one for that person, and then the other person sees it the same way, you guys become the one for yourself, for each other, you know? Because a lot of the time, you know, you could be like, oh, they're the one, but then they might not view you as the one because you haven't been working on yourself or whatever, right? Or you still have a lot of growing up to do or something.
That's what it was with my ex recently, where I guess when we first started talking, not first started talking, like a month in, she was like, you know, I think you're the one, where I never thought of it, but I decided to just say that also because I'm like, I felt that. But you saying that, it's like, no, maybe I was the one for her at the moment, but she wasn't the one for me. Or maybe she was the one for me at the moment, but I wasn't the one for her, you know? It's a constant journey though. It's something, it's a non-stopping, because even when it's an everyday thing, and you are getting married, but that doesn't mean you're gonna stop working on what you're doing or stop on working on yourself. And you know, it's a constant journey. But I know you do have to head out soon. Do you have any questions for me before I ask you my last question?
I guess, where are you, where's your mindset now? Because I know you would always tell me, like, I know you're gonna get married before me, like, it's just meant to happen, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess, how are you feeling now that, and you know, like, you saw my story from the third party of, like, obviously seeing how you and I aren't it's not necessarily like complete opposites of the spectrum, but very much different views of like how we go about it.
But we are, I mean, I would say we are complete opposite though, because we started off in the same area of the spectrum, where eventually when we left the church, I decided to go in the route of, essentially, I became an atheist and you became a Christian. So your morals is what made you be like, oh, well, I'm not going to do anything until I get married, essentially. And for me, it was like, well, in the end of the day, I don't see it as sacred, because it's like, it's a natural human tendency to want to have affection like that. So that's where I would say we are in the opposite sides of the spectrum. But just to be sure, what your question was exactly, where's my mindset after?
I guess, like, how are you viewing, I guess, ways to go about a relationship differently?
I would say definitely differently. Hell, dude, like, it's different from even 2 to 3 years ago, because 2 to 3 years ago, I was in a poly relationship where I had 3 girlfriends at the same time. So I tried that out, and obviously it didn't work out.
It's tiring. I can't imagine.
Oh, dude, like, the energy you're just giving out to different people. And even like that, they had their own partners also. So they had other partners. Like, if I did want to spend time with one of them, it's like I probably couldn't, because they were with, like, that's how we did our. But now, I guess, especially after this past breakup, I don't want to be in a relationship right now, obviously, because I there's a lot of things where I need to work on myself. But mainly, it's not that I don't want to get married. I mean, because I guess like it'd be all right. But I don't need a piece of paper to tell you that I love you like that. For you guys are getting married under the church, which is something that, it's based on your beliefs. I don't need that myself. If my partner were to be like, hey, like, let's get married under the church, I'd be like, sure. Like, because I love you, I'll do it for you. But also the priest or the pastor has to understand that I'm not religious like that. So, please don't get offended if I don't know, sign a paper or something, Relationships for me now is completely different. Like, I can't attest to that. I think it's definitely, you don't want to waste your time. I'm turning 28 next month, dude. I don't want to waste my time anymore. Like, I am tired of I stopped hooking up, whatever, when I was like 24, 25. So I stopped all of that. But I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to go out there. I stopped, in a sense, spending my energy on people who wouldn't want to give me the time of day. So I'm very specific, intentional. Yeah. I'm very intentional in what I am wanting, and I'm not afraid to, like, let them know. And here's the problem, though, because there is problems. That's not how society is. And that's something that I've talked with David about, where a woman who would want to be with me would be a woman who is probably in her 30s and knows what she wants and is ready for what she wants. Because the women that around my age right now, that's not where their mindset are. Like, sure, once again, there's outliers, or there are some that are out there. Like, I mean, you're a perfect example. Like, you have your mindset of like what you wanted, and you were able to find that guy who had that same mindset. But not everybody is like that. So why am I going to waste my time, in a sense, chasing if, well, I mean, perfect example with what happened right now, like, it's, and that doesn't mean I shouldn't give it a shot, but that should definitely mean I should be more receptive or more intuitive to the red flags that are there, so.
No, and I agree. And I heard like a short clip of a pastor just saying age doesn't necessarily mean maturity. It just entails physical appearance.
Yeah, but also age, you're able to gauge where they might be.
Because of experience.
True. Like there's age and wisdom. There's wisdom in age or age and wisdom. Like one of those 2. But yeah, like if I mean guys are a perfect example. Like a guy could be 40 years old and he's still immature as fuck.
Yeah.
Like that's that's something that a lot of the women that I would date that were older would say. Like their husbands or their ex-husbands just were immature as fuck and they didn't know or wouldn't communicate or didn't, I guess, how do you say this, like express perfectly like what they wanted.
Yeah, and I mean, very, very true. It also goes the same for women. You know, unfortunately, I mean, I am thankful that nowadays, mental health is a big topic, because I feel like that's why, like with our parents and even like people a little bit older than us, struggle with the immaturity or lack of communication, lack of showing emotion or whatever, because mental health wasn't spoken about or wasn't comfortable to talk about, right? Like if you feel down or you're depressed, you have a problem, take meds. So yeah, I definitely.
I will say, but even like that, it wouldn't even just be like take your meds or lie down. They would be like, oh, just pray about it. And for me, that didn't. But for me, it was like, no, like that. That's not a good way of approaching it. Like I'm a huge believer in, if you have something going in your mind, talk about it. Don't be afraid to, of course, have a designated person to talk about it with, because not everybody is going to be the same in hearing you out. Some people might be judgmental. Some people might discredit you. Find somebody who is receptive and neutral as best as possible to be able to be there for you. That's why there's therapists.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And you know, you definitely pointed out something really true of the whole like pray about it. You know, unfortunately, that word gets very misused in my opinion. Because just like you said, there's much more behind the pray about it. It's not of, oh, you know, like again, the whole genie thing, like, oh, I ask for this and it'll happen. There's so much more. And, you know, now that you kind of mentioned it, I kind of correlated to kind of like AA meetings, right? Like they all have sponsors. Yeah. So, you know, in a sense, I feel like we all need sponsors. You know, obviously that's not the title that they're given, but in a sense, it's that same dynamic of having that one person to go to when, you know, you're feeling a certain way or going through something to kind of talk you off the ledge, pretty much, right? You know, and at least for me, it's like, yeah, pray about it, but also talk to people. Prayer will just give you, to me at least, it will give you that extra.
No, I mean,
Extra.
yeah, like I'm not saying, you know, don't pray. It's like if we were to put it in a different word, it's like meditate, right? Meditate about it, because meditation helps you center yourself and reflect. So yeah, I'm not saying like don't pray about it if that's what you do. Like do what's best for you, as long as you're not harming somebody else with it, right? The only thing that really comes to mind with me, it's like I'll never forget this one time when we were in our old church, and we had I think it was a fast of Daniel, and I kid you not, bro, I didn't even do the fast, and I was in a bad mood because my dad, I don't know, he said something to me, and it was like it put me like in a very bad place, and I wanted to leave. Like I didn't want to be in the church. The pastor comes down and she's like, hey, I mean, trust me, one of these days, she comes down and she's just like, oh, like what's going on? And I'm just like, I just don't want to be here right now. I want to go home. And she was like, oh, he's just, you know, it's the antioxidants that from the fast that you're doing. And I was just like, I'm not even doing the fast. I was 13 or 14 at the time. So it's like, you're discrediting
Your
everything,
feelings.
essentially, yeah. And she said that she was like, you should pray about it. And I'm like, dude, I'm not. I don't want to be here right now.
Yeah.
It's like, no, your feelings are valid, of course, and obviously that's where it comes with talk it out, be in a neutral position about it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to say something, but just be sure you're saying it to the right person who is understanding, who is your quote unquote sponsor. But yeah, dude, like I said, if I get married one day, like, cool, I'd like that. I fuck, dude, legit. I wish I was with my partner that I am meant to be with, even though I don't believe in things happening for a reason. But like, whoever I'm gonna be with, like, I do wish I was with them right now. But I take into consideration that I still have a lot of work I need to do on my own.
Exactly. And I feel like knowing that, you want to work a little harder. Knowing that, I don't know, again, when you have that view of love as being so pure and beautiful and like just all these many great things, because that's exactly what it is. You want to strive to be better, to be able to give that, because again, it's an action, it's not a feeling, right? And so, I mean, definitely I'm happy to hear about, like, yeah, like if I get married, cool. Unfortunately, the way that the word marriage and I guess the structure of it in regards to ceremony and all that stuff has been definitely, I want to say, I don't know how to explain it. I feel like it's been very ripped apart because, I don't know, to my understanding at least, I don't know, I can't say I'm a theologian or anything because I'm really not, but I would like to think that in the Bible, not once does it say that, they got married and they had to sign a document, or, you know what I mean, just a certain way to go about it. I feel like the most important, because nowadays, like, the whole getting married by civil is all for legal purposes of like taxes and just like.
And I mean, yeah, like I guess that's where I'm getting at. It's like it's the taxes portion of it. I like I said, I don't need.
Exactly.
I don't need that. Like, I don't. And I get it. You could get tax breaks and all this stuff,
Yeah.
but to me, that's not important.
And yeah.
And on top of that, but if we were to also, like, marriage, like, a lot of it is religious, right? Like, it's essentially you, God, and your partner. So that's where a lot of it comes from. I personally don't need that. That's where I'm getting at. But I do agree with you in the sense where it's like, marriage in a sense can be whatever you really want it to be. Meaning, like, you could have just friends and family and have somebody just saying, hey, like, do you... A ceremony. Yeah, there you go. So it's like, yeah, like, that's, that's marriage. Like, that's, it's a ceremony.
No, absolutely. The ceremony, definitely. I don't know, because I think sometimes, and I'm like, well, let's say in the beginning of time in the Bible, right? How was the first marriage? Like, I don't know, I envision it being, because who would officiate it? You know what I mean?
I mean, there would be sacerdotes, or I forgot how to...
But even, like, let's say Adam and Eve, or Abraham and Sarah. You know what I mean? Like, I think, and I'm like, who officiated that?
Technically, in the Bible, God does still talk to them during that time. So, once again, you have to remember that even in the Old Testament, like, all of that is broken scripture in the sense where it's like it's not the entire story. So you don't know what else happens. So,
which goes to show that it's not that it's not important, but it's not a key element. So
it's not, and that's what I'm getting at. Like, I don't need it. Like,
well, what I'm getting at to that regard is all you need is you, your partner, and God. And so, strip away all, like family members or all the like the little details of the ceremony, which can be great. I'm not downplaying that. It can be great. But what I'm trying to get at is two people coming together before God, committing their lives to one another. So you don't need this whole big show or anything. Like, let's say, for example, right? For example, again, nowadays there's a lot more legal aspect to it, and I know the Catholic Church is very, I'll say responsible with, getting all the paper documentation, because unfortunately there are people that try to play it where it's like, oh, I've never been married before, but it's like, no, like you were married and you haven't gotten divorced, so yeah, with that. But let's say, for example, like, I don't know, this is how I just look at it. It's not to say, I'm not saying that this is the right way or whatever, like this is just kind of my thought process. But I feel like even nowadays, let's say Ruri and I just went to a church, or even if we were just alone, in the beach or something, and we just prayed together and being like, God, like, we just come unto you, like committing our lives to one another, bless our marriage, our union, our lives as we spend them together, and we choose to love one another, Yeah. And having that, and that it be it, what I mean? Like, that's the wedding, quote unquote, you know what I mean? Because in a sense, it's that commitment, that coming unto God and like placing our lives before Him, and kind of vowing that, it's gonna be Him and I forever.
I would agree with you, and I would say do that. Like, of course, like that's your choice. But because you are part of a organization or part of a like world that there are leaders, or there are like hierarchies, they technically would have the right to be like, that's not an official marriage, because of like them being at a higher position. But for example, like me, I would recognize that as like, yeah, like y'all married, like y'all have rings, all right, cool, like, that's, you are married in my eyes. Now if you want the more legal stuff, that's a whole different story, because that's the legalities. You also have to remember, like, back then a guy could have concubines and multiple wives. So like, you're saying, where in the Bible does it say, like, an official marriage? Like, yeah, but also a guy could have multiple wives, and if he chooses to, kill them if he wants to, due to circumstances, and it's brutal as fuck. But like, I guess we're both in the mutual understanding of like, if you love somebody, you love somebody.
Yeah.
Like, in your view, it's like, it's between you, your partner, and God. And that's, forget everybody else in the sense, like, it doesn't matter, right? Any other questions before I ask you my last question? No? Okay. So in a sense, I like to use the word a lot, catalyst, and that's like my favorite word of all time. There's a lot of people who might be listening to this who might be on the same page or same mindset as you are with, well, I've never had a boyfriend. They might be in high school, be like, I don't have a boyfriend. They might be in college, I've never had a boyfriend, never been kissed, none of this, Or there might be women who are around your age, and same thing. What is one thing you would say to them, or to anybody, that you learned in your life so far that you feel other people would benefit from listening to? And just to be sure, you know what the catalyst means, right? The word? Okay, so I'll define it real quick while you think about that. So the word catalyst, scientifically speaking, is a chemical that makes something react faster compared to it being due to natural causes. In a society-based word, a catalyst is a person who can make another person get farther in life versus them being doing it themselves or being on their own. So for example, the things that you might say right now might be something nobody like thought about. It might shift their perspective into a whole different thing that will get them farther in life versus them not knowing about that perspective and going at a slower pace.
So, AKA advice.
AKA advice. Thank you for literally tearing down dumbing down my podcast into
terms. And I wouldn't say this goes for a certain group of people. In regards to like, if they've never dated.
You would say it wouldn't, or what?
No, it wouldn't. It doesn't.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, like honestly, it goes for anyone that just wants to be in a relationship and wants to, or be loved. I feel like, to me, the most important thing, once you come into the understanding of love is a choice, and an action, you move differently. Just because there are going to be days where you don't feel the emotion behind the word love. You don't feel all those happy feelings and the fullness, the, I don't know, just kind of like the little pep in your step, I guess, that you would in other times. But that doesn't mean that you stop showing the actions behind the word love. In the Bible it says love is patient, love is kind, love is not boastful, just all these things, right? So that doesn't stop just because you don't feel it. You have to be disciplined, and it's not easy. It's really not. It's something that, again, just with anything else in life, like, you work towards, and I just feel like once you come to that understanding, and I don't know, it's so beautiful when you find that same I guess, reciprocation in the person that you're with, because then there's just so much growth in that, because you both have the understanding of like, hey, and like I've told my partner this, where I'm like, hey, like, I don't feel like I love you right now, but that doesn't mean, like, just know that I'm trying, because it's hard right now, whether it's because I'm tired or we got in an argument or whatever, and just breaking down those barriers of the emotion aspect behind it, because it's easy to be mad. It really is. It's easy to like resent someone. Excuse me. To be hurt. It's just interesting how those things can come easy, but it can be hard sometimes to like be happy or love or show affection to someone. So I definitely say that it doesn't stop just because you don't feel it. And yeah.
I mean, if anything, especially after what you went through in your last relationship, you had the choice of being angry forever and being resentful forever, but you would have lost what would have been right in front of you, which in this case was the guy you're marrying in a few days.
Yeah, I would have lost the purpose for that season, because I would have been so busy in resenting, and I had every right to, hate this person and not forgive them and just all these things. But, a lot of the things that you do in regards to, holding resentment, it doesn't benefit anyone around you. But it does more damage to you than it would to them, because that person moved on real quick. And they just went on with their life. And if I would have chosen to stay angry and resentful, like, I would have been losing, while their life would have just kept on going fine. So you always want to look at the bigger picture of, like, who is this really benefiting? And it goes exactly the same with a relationship. In a relationship, like, just holding all those negative things doesn't bring growth. Like, things just die, and we see it with fruit or just nature, like, if there's negativity, I know that there's been like scientific research or whatever, like, if you talk positively to a plant or something, like, it grows.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not specifically talking positively to a plant. It's more of like your mouth has carbon monoxide, so like what you breathe out is what gives the plant life. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, okay. So, I mean, yes, but I feel like not many people would I mean, I don't know. I would like to see it. I mean, there probably is like someone just talking negatively to a plant.
And the plant's just like all droopy and stuff.
Yeah. Or who knows? Like it might thrive too. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's also a deep kind of revelation of like, yeah, people will talk down to you, but you can still thrive in that.
Yeah, and it goes back to everything with you with like, yeah, you were resentful, yeah, you were mad, but you were able to utilize that to your advantage where you worked out. You wanted to be a better partner for whoever, you utilized your anger basically. You utilized the resentment, and you were eventually, once you got to where you want to be, or maybe you're not there yet, but you were able to let go what you don't need anymore. You were able to take off that baggage because you already used it enough to gain what you wanted.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely, like, every season has its reason, it just depends on what you choose to use it for. Because, again, people can hold on to things the whole entirety of it, and they don't grow because they have that thing that's limiting them. Or, and obviously, I had my period in time where I did hold on to that, because it wasn't just like, oh, we broke up, and then that was the end of it. Like, that, like, every 6 months or whatever, I'd get a text message, and then it would just bring me back to that whole thing. So, yeah, it definitely was. It wasn't like a quick, like, oh, okay, I forgive him and that's it. I definitely took a lot of time. And even after, like, once I started talking to, I think, like, once I had my first conversation with Ruri, like, I think, like, 2 months after, my ex still messaged me. It's just the most randomest thing. He was like, Happy Easter. And I'm like, since when do you celebrate Easter for one? And why are you messaging me Happy Easter? Like, it was just the most stupidest thing ever. And so, obviously, like, it pissed me off because I'm like, why are you still bugging me? After I had told him, like, hey, like, that's it. Like, I'm done. And I had to, like, tell him, I'm like, hey, I'm in a relationship. Like, please respect that. Don't ever message me again. And not only did I, like, ended there, I had to, like, I blocked him off of everything, like his phone number, Instagram, Facebook, everything, because I can't leave it in his hands to, like, respect that. Like, I had to do my part and be like, you know what, like, all contact is cut off. And so, yeah, I mean, it's still, like, those little things definitely brought me back to, like, the anger, because I'm like, just leave me alone, like, I've grown, leave me alone. But every time I had to choose to, like, get over it and forgive, because just like with love, forgiveness is a choice, and it's not a one-time thing. Like, you have to forgive that person every single time that you remember it, or you feel it, or you feel upset or whatever. And so that was definitely the case for me.
And also, like, if you really love somebody, you really have to let them go. I mean, in the sense where you don't love them, but you love them enough to be like, I have to block you because you gotta stop this.
I feel like it's hard. It's hard because, like, to me, I wouldn't say I love you enough I had to block you. For me, it was more so I have to love me enough to block you. So it definitely is love, but not all the time is love for that person. It's just more for yourself.
For yourself, yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely where I was at.
So it's self-love.
Absolutely. Just because,
Yeah,
there's better out there, and potential is great, seeing potential in someone, but a lot of the time you have to really dig deep to be like, do I want to be the one to, like, dig through all of that to reach their potential?
I would say yes. For me, I would say yes, because that's the whole part of growth, right? But you also have to remember where they are in their lifetime to be able to do that. because the guy you're with right now is older, and I understand that we went to the whole thing. It's like maturity doesn't really come with age, but you're able to gauge where they are. So he definitely the guy you're with right now, he went through his own stuff, so he was able to like get to where he wants, but he's not where he wants to be at. And then you come into the picture now where it's like you're able to like get him even more into the potential that he has. So I would say it's more like choosing your investment that you want that potential to bring out. Like,
exactly. Yeah, you choose if you want to dig through all of that. But the thing is, you don't know how long that's going to take. And of course, it's not of like what's my reward in the end, right? It's definitely not going into it because of that. But knowing that you're going to have to struggle so much more without knowing, for one, if they'll ever reach it, or how long it's actually going to take, or of you put in all this work just to have them leave. Because again, at any point, to me, marriage is a one-time deal. Like, there is no such thing as divorce. Like, it's forever.
We either gonna work on it or we're gonna work on it.
So if you view it that way, it's knowing like, okay, is it like you're gonna have to deal with 20 plus years if that's how long it takes to like get the full potential out of that person, and so it's always an investment, but even investments have returns eventually, right? But it may take 20 years.
Damn, I hate it because I have one last question I wanted to ask. Okay. All right, cool. Do you ever fear, because of our past experiences with our family and my mom and dad, do you ever fear that you might bring those chains into your marriage in a sense?
Absolutely not. Just because I separated myself from that. So it's something you have to overcome and realize that doesn't define you and your life. A lot of the times, unfortunately, and I feel like unconsciously too, people do that purposefully, where they victimize themselves. And again, like they may not think about it often, but it's like in the back of their mind of like, oh well, my dad cheated on my mom. How do I not know that this person isn't gonna cheat on me? And so they just walk life like that, or they surround themselves in that environment, so they don't see a way out, right? So yeah, I definitely chose to separate myself, and of course it was scary, because like you never know the other person. You don't know what their intention is, how serious they are about wanting to be with you and stuff. Because of course, like, I don't know, for me personally, like, I would never want to be in a relationship with the possibility of someone cheating on me. Like, from the very beginning, it was established of like just all those conversations of like, oh, what's your view of like, being in a relationship but having friends of the opposite sex, or constantly interacting with friends of the opposite sex, just because you need to know. Like, you don't know how people act in regards to once they're in a relationship. Like, do they stop that contact? I personally believe like once you're in a relationship, there is no need for you to engage with friends of the opposite sex in regards to like text messages, hangouts, like just me and a guy friend. Like, why would I do that?
When you say that, you mean like alone, essentially?
Alone, yeah.
But not in the friend group.
Yeah, no, in the friend group it's different. But if it's like alone, like, it's no longer just me, it's us, me and my partner with that one person, have it be. But so, it's just understanding all those, or like laying the foundation for those things. And so again, like, once you build that trust, from the very beginning. Like, I told Rudy and he told me, like, we gave each other that reassurance of like, oh yeah, here's my passcode. Like, we leave our phones in the room, whatever. If like I go to the kitchen or the bathroom and he does the same, and you know, like it's that openness, right? There's nothing to hide. He's never given me a reason to not trust him, and vice versa. So, you know, having a healthy relationship like that, obviously it takes away that fear, that thought process of like, well, how do I know if he's going to cheat or not, or divorce and all those things. And again, there's just a much deeper root of for divorce and cheating. Yeah. Like, you know, some people might like think differently, or like this may be controversial, but the way I view, so before when I was younger, I used to view someone cheating on the other person in a marriage or whatever as like like of course it's unacceptable, but of like, oh hell no, like I'm leaving, like that's it, like you don't do that, I'm done, blah blah blah. But I would like to think that a lot of like, especially someone that's like serious about the marriage and mature and stuff like that, I would like to think that they didn't just do it just to do it, you know, or like it wasn't just like a one instance that someone came up to them and they were like, oh yeah, sure, you know. I mean, I feel like it's something that builds leading up to that. So there's something.
So you would say like a lack of
Yes.
needs from a certain party.
Yes.
Yeah, and that yeah, that's usually what it is. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if
Whether it's emotionally,
physically, yeah.
And so yeah, coming to that understanding, I viewed it differently of like, you know, me being in a relationship where we talk so much that nothing slips through the cracks. Like I've told Rudy, I'm like, honestly, Rudy, like we need to talk about everything. Like if there's a lack of something, if there's something that's like missing, or you know that you need or whatever, and vice versa, because if we drop the communication, then I cannot blame him for cheating, because there was something that was missing and I dropped the ball on it. You know what I mean? Whether I chose to ignore it, because sometimes, you know, it happens where the guy's like, hey, like I feel like this, or like we're not having sex enough, or you know what I mean, like you haven't been paying much attention to me, all this stuff, but the partner ignores it, doesn't take it seriously, all this stuff.
They discredit it, they invalidate it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know what I mean, like in a sense, it's like, yes, them going out and cheating is a no, like you never do that, there's never a reason for you to do that, but you also have to, you know, own up to your part of like, you know what, like he was telling me, I just didn't listen. And so that's kind of how I view it, of like, you know, if I dropped the ball of like, oh, I invalidated his feelings or I discredited him, you know, like I have to own responsibility of like, okay, like, you know, it wasn't just like a one, like it happened out of nowhere, like no, it grew into that.
And I mean, just to reassure, like you're not saying that it's entirely your fault. That's not where you're getting at. You're saying that like it's that's extreme ownership. Like something happened. What did I do to potentially?
What was my role?
Yeah, what was your role? Yeah, what you do? And it's true. Like a lot of marriages, if people do certain things, it's because there's a lack of something in that. Yeah. But yeah, man. Anything else you want to get into before I cut it off?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, you're getting married in 2 days, which for me, as your brother, that it's been a long ass journey, and it's awesome to see you grow so much to how you were back when we were in high school, where like a lot of guys try to get at you.
I don't think it is.
I mean, they would come to me and be like, you know, is your sister single or some shit? To the times where we fought a lot, and we definitely fought a lot, but it was always you and me versus the world, and that's how I like to think of it, because you know, especially with my mom, with her addictions, and my dad with his problems, in the end of the day, it's like it would be me and you, and I would check in on you, or you would check in on me and be like, "Yo, like, is everything okay? You know, are you good?" So I'm happy, like I'm genuinely happy that you're finally able to be with the person that you decided to want to be with, that you know factually this is somebody that I want to spend the rest of my life with. And I've always told you, dude, like, I'm always here for you, regardless of anything. And I've always will be here for you. You know, I genuinely do love you. And I hope you know that. Like, regardless of our fight that we had recently, it's like, a part of me is my fault because it's hard for me to accept that my sister isn't going to be around as much as before. But I do love you, and I hope you know that. Okay?
Well, I mean, I feel the same way, and you know, that's how I view it too. Like, it was only you and I know the entirety of the things we went through in this house, you know, with our parents.
Yeah.
And so we knew the hurt, the, you know, emotional suffering we went through, and it wasn't easy, you know. Like, I guess it sucked that we went through it, but I guess it was nice to know that you weren't the only one. You know what I mean? Like, there was someone that could understand you completely, you know. And so yeah, it definitely was a hard I wouldn't say upbringing, but hard moments. And you know, like, and you know what, like, well, that if it was up to me, I would have been married like what, almost 3 years ago.
More than 3 years ago.
Yeah,
Fuck, dude.
and I would. Yeah, it's not even that late, but considering our family that they're Latino and they all got, you know, like they all have children now, like, you know, and they're younger than me and all that stuff. But you know, I am grateful for, you know, for my, like, in the belief of like God's perfect timing, because, you know, I was even telling my mom this, that like, it makes me really happy to know that I'm getting married and leaving while our relationship is in a really like stable place, you know, because if it would have been in other periods of time, you know, I would have been resentful. I would have been very hurt. And
You would have gotten
upset
married
at her.
without.
Yeah, without her present, you know. So it definitely does make me happy to know that, like, you know, with her, and then with you, yeah, like you said, we had our fight, but even before then, you know, we've had we've had good communication, and like,
I mean, something we worked on a lot.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
like, I would definitely say the way we worked on our communication was better than like how we would work our communication with my mom and dad.
No, absolutely. And I feel like that goes back to like us working on each other individually, right? And so yeah, I'm definitely grateful for just all those things, and you know, knowing that you're gonna be there, my mom's gonna be there, and obviously it took a lot of growing up to do for, like, you know, us to swallow our pride and, you know, admit our wrongs, because no one likes to be wrong. Honestly, that's the reality of it. Like, no human being likes to be wrong or told that they're wrong, even though that it's something that's important and is needed, you know, especially when you're dealing with relationships of any variety, siblings, coworkers, whatever. But you know, it does make me really happy, and you know, I love you too, and I'm not going anywhere, you know, like, thankfully I'm not moving far either, but you know, like, it makes me happy to know that we're very much involved still, and keep up with that, you know, like, it just means that we just have to be more intentional with, you know, like, getting together and stuff, as opposed to, like you said, like, oh, I'm not saying you said this, but like, as opposed to like viewing it as like, oh, they're here all the time, you know, like, you don't take things for granted as much, you know. And so yeah, it's definitely a part of life, and it's growing up, and you know, I'm excited for, you know, what's to come in these next days, months, with our lives. And I know, like, I know you're in a lot more healthier position mentally, emotionally, which makes me obviously happy and at ease knowing that, like, because I've always told you, I'm like, hey, like, I'm not worried about you getting married because I know that it's gonna happen. Because it's not hard to be in a relationship. You can be in a relationship with anyone, but the difficult part is finding someone that is on the same wavelength as you in regards to like the way you view things. Is not necessarily agreeing on everything, but like I guess just the foundational stuff of like, putting the effort in for the relationship, and growing as individuals, as human beings, and so that's hard to find, but it's also not impossible. So, I definitely know that your time will come, and, you've definitely, like you said, even 2-3 years ago, like you've definitely grown a lot from then. And, like we said, it doesn't stop. Like it just continues, now you just have, like for me, now I just have someone that's gonna, continue to hold me accountable and grow with me and all that stuff, and we'll build something together. But we'll build something together, but I'm working on building myself individually, and vice versa with him. He's growing on building himself individually as well. So I mean, yeah, like I'm always here, and we're here for each other.
When are we going back to Japan?
I don't know when they're gonna open up, but it'll happen.
Yeah, you, me, and Rudy.
Yeah,
I'll tour y'all.
Yeah.
And this time it'll be longer than 3 days.
I know.
Bro,
Yeah.
that was alright.
It was awesome, but
It was awesome, but it wasn't enough, obviously.
Wasn't enough. I
like,
didn't get to see nearly.
Dude, and the jet lag, I think that's what killed it for me. Because I was exhausted, and it was like the jet lag, though.
Yeah. It was rough, but yeah, I'm excited for things to open up again. And,
same. Alright, sis. Te quiero mucho.
Alright, bro. Love you too.
Well, hello there. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode of the JTX podcast. I can definitely say, being with my sister and just having that deep conversation about, in a sense, waiting for what you always wanted in life, really hit a lot. And meanwhile, we are all on that journey of we don't have a significant other. We're alone, lonely, and such. And while I don't believe things happen for a reason, I don't believe things will come at their own time. I do believe putting yourself out there, it'll eventually happen. And regardless of the falls that you may take, it's always possible to. It is always possible to get what you want, just not rushing the process in a sense, right? Because we'll go through different people that we are attracted to, but sometimes some of us are just lucky like that we only go through two of them, or sometimes we go through many of them, but just don't lose hope. Don't lose the yearning of what you want, and in the meantime, work on yourself. Always work on yourself. It's better to work on yourself while that person that you want to be with comes, because you want to be ready for that. But if you liked this podcast, please give it a 5 stars. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, if you are watching this on YouTube, because we are posting these officially on YouTube now, please leave a thumbs up, leave a like, comment, let me know your feedback or anything that resonated with you. And also check out the website, www.jasontamer.com / actually no / the one I was going to say is instagram.com / Jason Tamer. There we go. Also that one. But as I usually say, we've done shit, caused shit, we've been through shit. But that doesn't mean we can't change today to be somebody's catalyst in life. Take it easy, y'all.